I'm Cole. With me today is Matt and Tim. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well, man. Doing
There we
well.
Yeah,
go. It's the
yeah,
off
about as
season here. We've
about as
got we've
well
got
as the
Spurs, OKC in the background, but you know what? We
Mhm.
got some Timberwolves things to talk about today.
yes, about as well as we can hope it would be to chat about the off season. There's going to be some exciting things that are going to happen this summer, kind of just based off what the roster, ended like and what it's going to look like in the future, right? Um, we have a few people or a few players that are going to be leaving here, whether it's trade or just free agency, and guys are going to be joining the team. So I guess what we're going to do is we're just going to dive deep right away. We're going to look at Tim's spreadsheet here. And Tim, I just kind of want you to go over this a little bit with us and just give us a little bit of a lowdown on what you think is going to happen this offseason and what things kind of will happen.
Yeah. I mean, there needs to be some changes, quite
Mhm.
frankly. I mean, coming out of the exit interviews, it sounds like a team that ran its course. Uh, they have a little bit of flexibility. I mean, last summer it was pretty tight. They had a lot of people that they had to sign and not enough money. Right now, as it sits on May 18th, they have 9 roster spots accounted out of 15. I think it's highly unlikely that they carry a full 15 by the time training camp starts. Reason being is they're going to need every cent they can get. So again, we have 9 roster spots filled. We currently sit with just under $30 million below the second apron. Really briefly, I want to talk about why we're going to use the second apron as a maximum cap. So the Timberwolves, they spent they've already spent one season in the second apron, and there's a rule called the 3/5 rule where if you spend 3 years within a 5-year span above that second apron, you start losing your first round picks to the end of the round. Already, Minnesota has a frozen pick just from being in the second apron. That's 2032. We wouldn't be able to trade that right now. We can't even do a pick swap with it. So that second apron, it is the cap right now, and that will be the cap for the Timberwolves because we're not going to break that 3/5 rule. The whole idea is we're going to reset that timeline, and you could probably expect us to make the next push up above that second apron, closer to Ant's prime. For now, we're not going above it. Sure, we can get hypothetical, but there's probably a 1% chance that we were to go above the second apron, and that likely only happens if Tim Connolly is like, "This is the team."
Mhm.
Based on the fact that we just lost in the second round, there's probably not a series of moves that get it to the point where we're saying, let's go all in. So Timberwolves are going to have 29.9 million to make a couple moves. They're going to have to re-sign some people, and because of the Ayo Dosunmu extension, it's probably going to be a lot of veteran minimums, depending on what Ayo would receive. You guys still with me? That's a lot of numbers.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes, I do have a question for the listeners too.
Yeah.
So, Tim, you're the numbers guy. With this Ayo Dosunmu extension that needs to come, my question for you, and I guess this is for you too as well, Cole.
Mhm.
With how well Ayo played towards the end of the regular season, and he obviously had the big 43-point explosion in Game 4 at home against Denver, what do you guys think that number is going to be for Ayo? And let me add another layer onto this. Do you think that there is any small chance, big chance, whatever it may be, that for some reason we would lose Ayo Dosunmu in free agency?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first, Tim. Everything that I'm seeing right now is like around like that 3-year 52 million. So what does that average out to be? About 17 million a year. Also here, and it's between that 15 and 17 mil mark. But the thing of it is like that's actually a pretty solid contract for what the Wolves are looking for, right? And we would be able to get half the twin turbos back. Everyone loves Io and Bones, but If you look at the landscape of the NBA right now, there are only a few teams that actually that are on like the plus side of the salary cap right now. You have teams like the Chicago Bulls, the Brooklyn Nets, and I've even heard the LA Lakers as well. And just based off of those three teams, there's probably a couple more that I'm missing, but just based off of those couple teams, yes, Io is from Illinois. I doubt he would go back to Chicago. Just kind of seeing how that whole thing went down. Um, and I doubt he wants to go to Brooklyn either. And so that just leaves the Timberwolves and kind of the LA Lakers. And those are two spots that are intriguing, right? Those are hot spots right now for the NBA for players that want to come play and want to be with Ant. The one thing that I think that the Wolves have over the Lakers right now is that there is that chemistry with some of these guys. He's played with them. You have Anthony Edwards, who is an attractive player, and people want to play with him. But in my heart, I want Io here, and I think it's Tim, you've said this before. It's probably going to be in that 15 to 16 range, and I think it's going to be around that as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great chance that we re-sign Ayo Dosunmu for the same reasons that Cole just mentioned. Not many teams do have the cap space. What does need to be mentioned are some teams have the cap space. And it just takes a team, like whether it's Chicago who has a new front office and maybe wants to do over on Ayo, or maybe it's Brooklyn Nets who are desperate, just want to have somebody. I believe Ayo is listed as the 7th most valuable free agent on Bleacher Report today.
Yes.
That's pretty high on the list. So there is an off chance that Ayo is going to get some crazy, like 3 years, $75 million contract that's specifically designed that Minnesota can't match. It needs to be said. I hate that I'm saying it. I think it's a sizable enough chance of that happening that it needs to be said. And in that situation, Minnesota, we're looking at the cap sheet. So just to do a quick exercise, let's say everybody else gets the minimum, which is, I believe the minimum is 245. No, excuse me.
Hey, Tim.
2.45 million.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, Tim, real quick. Can you just scroll up just a little bit so we can see Edwards and Gobert?
Yeah.
If you're able to.
There we go. Does that work?
No, it's okay. Oh, people can kind of see it. We'll be good. We're good.
Okay, we're gonna insert.
Okay.
Let's see what's going on.
There we go. There it is. Perfect.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, 2.45 million is the veterans minimum this year. So we're just gonna go ahead and give several people that contract. Doesn't mean that all 4 of these players are gonna have it, but that gets us to 13. Like I said earlier, we're probably only going to carry 14 players just to keep us open for a future trade and to maximize the money that we do have. As you can see, that leaves 20 million on the dot for Ayo Dosunmu. The highest that Minnesota likely can go is a 4-year, 85 million. You just have to remember the way Minnesota is probably going to have to structure it is with a bird rights extension where you're getting 5 to 8% raises every year. That's going to put at a 4-year, 85 million. That's probably going to put Ayo around 19 million in year 1.
Okay.
So let's input that. Whoops. One more 0. And that is going to take Minnesota right up to the edge of the second apron.
Okay.
Now, the advantage of that, this is enough where, if you guys remember, the cap hits on the buyout market for Mike was about 750K, and Kyle Anderson was even less, around 600K. So they can still fill out the roster in the buyout market, even with only 1 million in space. Obviously, there's going to be some changes. We're probably not going to see Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert back, whom the Timberwolves owe just under $70 million next year. We're probably going to have to make some moves there. But I just want to throw it out there. If you see Minnesota signing Ayo to a 4-year, 85 million, yes, it's a lot of money. But at that point, it becomes about preserving the assets you do have. Sure, it's an overpay, but if you link it, or if you lock up Io on that contract, he's still a movable player. He's still a good player. He's probably just going to be more of a salary match in a future trade, rather than a core player on a great contract like a Dante DiVincenzo on his
Yeah.
12.5 million.
Well, not to mention too, I mean, Io's 26 years old. So you get him on that 4-year deal, he's still in his prime even before he hits 30. So,
Mhm.
we kind of look at this, and the way that I'm looking at it is how many people were upset about the Jade McDaniels extension that we gave him a couple years ago,
Yeah,
and look at it now, like the player that he is. Yes, he didn't have the greatest postseason this year, but he he outplays his contract. In my mind, he does.
yeah,
And it was a good contract at the time. So I think that people just need to kind of realize that if it was for that 4-year, 85 million, like that's in his prime. And that's you're gonna get him for 4 years.
right.
And you also have to look at it too, where Gobert and Randall are most likely not going to be here. So there is going to be some room. But again, we'd be bringing guys in that we'll kind of go over here shortly.
And
Yeah,
with the IO number, if we were shooting for that 19 million, like you guys said, that is not a small amount of money by any means.
no,
No.
But my question is, who would you rather have on the team? Because I pulled up a list of some players making around, we'll call it 19 to 25 million. And obviously Io's not going to get that 25, but Keldon Johnson is making 29 to 20 million. I'm personally taking Io over Keldon
yeah,
Johnson.
Mhm.
Bogdan Bogdanovich is still making $20 million.
Oh,
Cam Johnson,
yeah,
23. Jordan Poole is making 24. Anthony Simons is making 24. So you just do have to remind yourself that the NBA's salary cap is increasing every single season, and these teams are able to hand out what seemed like massive contracts, but in the
mhm.
landscape of the grand scheme of things, when you break it down, the number doesn't seem as bad as it does initially when you hear $85 million for a role player.
Mhm.
yeah. You're exactly right, Matt. And honestly, if gun to my head, if you had to have me guess what an Ayo Dosunmu contract is, um, I would peg him as a fair value contract of 4 years, $75 million. That equates, if we're just assuming the 8% bird rights raises every year for 4 years, it's about one more zero again. It's about a $16.75 million contract. So in that situation, I mean, Minnesota has some room.
Mhm.
They could sign one more player to an above minimum contract deal and still have enough left over for the buyout market.
Yeah.
Again, for the sake of this pod, any listeners are probably like, "Well, you got to trade Julius, you got to trade Rudy." We're not going to quite get into that. This pod's more of like, where do we currently sit? Um,
Mhm.
but that 4 years, 75 million, yes, it's a lot of money, but it's a fair deal. It's just about the
Mhm.
mid-level exception. So that's where I'd peg him at.
Yeah, Matt,
Absolutely.
let's hear. I want to hear kind of what you think of that. What do you think of when you think of Io and his extension coming up?
So I think with the Iowa extension, obviously, kind of like I said, no matter the way you look at it,
Mhm.
it is a chunk of change, but I think that Io has proved that he is a plus player in our system, especially like we saw it in, I'm gonna backtrack to this game a lot. The game 4 against Denver. Obviously, there's no Ant, there's no Dante, and somebody needed to step up, and that happened to be Io. But post trade deadline, Io still took his game to another level. It felt like he was already having a
Yes.
career year in Chicago. To come to a team that has an established 1, 2, 3, and then if you even want to argue 4 in Dante, to be
Yeah.
that fifth option or fourth option and still put up those level or those numbers of productivity, keeping your efficiency as high as it was. And
Mhm.
as not to mention, I feel like this kind of got pushed under the radar for getting traded and having to just kind of figure it all out.
Right.
You don't have the offseason to figure out Ant's tendencies. You don't know where Rudy likes the ball. You don't know where Dante's shooting pocket is. The fact that he figured all that stuff out as quick as he did, it seemed like he meshed super well with the guys. So me personally, I'm all on board for re-signing Io. I think that he's proved that he's worth it. I think that there is still kind of another level to his game. The question is how do you find Ayo Dosunmu the shots? And I think now that, again, assuming that I think a majority of Wolves fans and NBA fans know you're going to move off Julius Randle, so in this hypothetical, we're going to do that. That leaves Jaden more shots. You don't have Dante next year. That leaves Ayo more shots. And then if you want to take this another step further, like you said, that is a very, very tradable contract. And say Ayo is playing at a third, and for some reason, God knows how, a second level option and putting up like 25 and 5 or something like that next to Ant, you can ship him off and get multiple first round picks possibly. So I think just the fact that Ayo has so much upside as a player and where today's NBA landscape is at contract wise, I think that if you're the Wolves and just as a fan, I would pull the trigger if I was Tim Conley.
Right. Oh, Tim, hold on here.
At some point, it does reach that point with Ayo where you have to consider, is this smart? And I think that line is right at that $85 million mark. At that point, you do have the option. So let's say Ayo, he gets that 4-year, $100 million contract or 3-year, 75 that we obviously can't match. There is the option of potentially signing and trading him. And maybe you can collect another second-round pick or maybe 2 or 3 second-round picks or maybe a young player in return. So there are some options. Even if we can't sign him, we could recoup some of those assets we gave up. But ultimately, I think if it gets beyond that $19, $20 million mark, you just have to get creative and hope you can recoup some assets in a sign and trade.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And before we continue with these next thoughts, we're going to go to a quick ad read from SeatGeek.
What's up, Minnesota fans? Many of you know that I help fans get tickets into games, and now I'm giving you an opportunity to get tickets to any sporting event you want, not just basketball. We're talking football. We're talking hockey. We're talking soccer, man. Any sporting event that's in town, or maybe it's a concert. All you have to do is use my promo code, The Daily Wolves, all caps, on SeatGeek. That's right. I partnered with the SeatGeek app. You can download it on iOS or Android devices. You can find it on your web browser at SeatGeek.com. Check it out today. Enter my promo code, The Daily Wolves, and get $20 off your first order.
Big shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's episode. You guys heard it. Anything you guys want now that the Timberwolves season wrapped up. We got football season coming up. We got concerts. It's the best time of the year in Minnesota. Go use the Daily Wolves promo code for SeatGeek today. I'll kick it back to you now, Cole.
Yeah, of course. Great. SeatGeek, love them. Okay, so I just kind of want to ask you guys here too, as we have the salary cap sheet up here. Let's kind of look at the draft coming up a little bit, like kind of how our draft picks are looking, whether it's this year or, upcoming. Like, how is that going to look, for maybe trades down the road, or just how things are going to look if we want to make some sort of moves this offseason to help bolster our roster moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, the Timberwolves have 2 tradable firsts. I did see in a Johnny K article that he had mentioned the 2028 pick you could trade. I need some clarification on that. According to the stipend rule, because we don't have the 2027 pick, and because, excuse me, that 2029 pick is accounted for in a protected trade, we should not be able to trade the 2028 pick. So unless there's something I'm missing from Johnny K, or there's a clarification or change to the rule that I'm not tracking, I am tracking that we can only trade our 2026 pick, which is number 28 in this draft, and our 2033 unprotected pick. Now, that 2033 unprotected pick should have a ton of value. That is in the post-Ant era. So that pick way out in the future should attract a lot of teams. Additionally, we may not be able to trade the 2028 pick, but we can use it in a swap. Now, the one piece I do need clarification on is the 2032 pick is frozen. We should be able to send a pick swap on it. But if not, it's because it's frozen due to the second apron penalties discussed earlier.
For the more casual listeners, Tim, do you want to maybe break down real quick the best way you can as a synopsis, just kind of what a pick swap is?
Yeah. So a pick swap, very basic. So, for example, the Rob Dillingham trade. we gave up a 2030 pick swap and a 2031 first round pick. Essentially, that gives the Spurs the right to flip picks with us. So, for example, the Spurs are one of the best teams in the league. They're going to be picking towards the end of the draft, and probably after the Minnesota Timberwolves. If the Timberwolves finish lower in the standings and have a more favorable pick, the Spurs can then swap picks. So, for example, if the Spurs have pick 29 and the Wolves have 21, well, the Spurs are picking 21 and we're picking 29. Now, that 2030 pick, the Spurs then traded it again to Dallas. Made another trade with Dallas. So now that pick for Minnesota is actually the least favorable of Dallas, the Spurs, and obviously us as well. Now, I expect Dallas to be better than us, so it's still probably just a Spurs-Minnesota swap. But does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense on the total breakdown. And, I know we're talking about draft picks right now. I'll get into this later, actually. I'll let you guys continue your course, but I do have something to bring up about that 2028 or the 2026 pick this year.
Yeah. And then just why a pick swap is valuable, you might be thinking, well, I mean, what are you moving up a couple spots? But for example, if we can do the 2032 pick, that again is a post Anthony Edwards era pick. Likely. Maybe not. Hopefully not. I hope not. But likely it probably is. So if you can do that pick swap, and for example, if we go big game hunting, say a Kawhi Leonard or Giannis Antetokounmpo, you can have that be an unprotected pick, which means if the Timberwolves are picking number 1 overall in that year, and we give it to the Bucks and we're below the Bucks, well, the Bucks are now picking number 1 overall. So future swaps can actually have quite a bit of value. Sure, it may be nothing, but you have that potential for it to be a number 1 overall pick in the future.
The Wolves and Bucks pick swap, man. A little throwback to the 2014 draft. I think it was when we took Wiggins and the Bucks took Parker. Imagine it'd be that all over again. Wouldn't that be crazy?
No, I mean, honestly, Tim, I've been seeing the same thing when it comes to the 2028 pick, where that pick is frozen. So, but again, Johnny K is who he is because he's tapped into everything. So unless he misspoke or mistyped what about the 28 pick, I've been reading the same thing, that it's been frozen. So I don't think that that's a pick that we're just going to be able to just throw out there moving forward.
You can swap it though. You can swap.
Well, yes, but it just can't be on its own.
Again, like it's probably not it's still in the Anthony Edwards era. So ultimately, I think in terms of needle moving in a trade package, I don't know how much it probably has the equivalent of a second round pick. It's not moving the needle much.
No, I got you. All right, Matt, you can go and say what you were going to say about this year's pick if you want.
So for this year's pick, I'm going to bring this back again to the Julius Randle point. What do you guys think the likelihood is if whatever suitors there are for Julius, because there's a lot of talk that, Julius Randle, he's a negative asset. He's not a winning player. I think that there are a lot of teams out there that truthfully could benefit from a Julius Randle type of player. Teams that come to mind, the Phoenix Suns, the New Orleans Pelicans. Who knows? Maybe Julius Randle says, man, I want to go back home. I don't really know what we could do with Dallas or something like that, but that is a possibility. And my question for you guys is, if we move Julius, do you think that teams are going to try to leverage that 2026 first off of us just due to the lackluster end of the season post All-Star break from Julius? And then we all remember and know what happened in the playoffs. So I kind of just want to hear your guys' little 2 cents on it. If you think that teams are going to come after that 2026 pick just because they see Julius as a quote unquote negative asset and can kind of bring something else in. It's kind of like the Ja Morant thing right now. Like that's why Ja Morant wasn't traded at the deadline. Teams were trying to attach first round picks to Ja Morant. And I almost wonder if it's going to be the same thing with Julius Randle all over again.
Yeah. For me, if I am trying to trade with the Minnesota Timberwolves for Julius Randle, I'm trying to get as much as I can from the Timberwolves as possible. That's just me. You saw what the player did before all the trade talks were going down, right? And then everything that was happening in between to what led at the end of the season and ultimately into the playoffs. Julius Randle is a great player. I will just say that I said that on Twitter
Yes.
today and over the season. Like, Julius Randle is a phenomenal player in the right situation. But what's wrong with Julius Randle is his overall effort. And if I'm a GM somewhere else, that's one thing I'm going to be saying is when it gets hard, when it gets tough in the playoffs or down the end of the season and things aren't going his way, the ball's not getting to him as much as he wants. Is that mood going to turn? Because his mood, it flips on and off like a switch
Yeah,
on a light.
you can
right?
tell as a viewer. You can tell.
Yes, exactly. So, and we saw all of the exit interviews, everyone talking about the moodiness. Who didn't show up for his exit interview? Julius Randle. So, if I am any GM out there, I am trying to get as much as I can, and I would try to include the 26th, first round pick for this year from the Timberwolves, because I can't trust Julius Randle in my locker room. Even though he's a phenomenal player, I can't trust him as, this guy who's going to take me to the promised land and get us further into the playoffs or further than what my franchise has done previously. But I will say this, I think Charlotte is a good landing spot for him. I know that he would probably be the 2 or 3 there. But I think that's a better spot for him moving forward.
Ultimately, I don't really care about the exit interviews. It's pretty much just fan service. But Julius not showing up is just kind of the cherry on top to how a lot of things went. You're the second best player on the team. They're also paying you the third most on the team. You can't show up. You're just going to leave your team hanging. It's unacceptable, quite frankly. And I'm someone that doesn't really care about this type of stuff. But after kind of the effort you see on the bench, I was talking to someone today who had a good view of Julius Randle during the intros. He didn't get up when his name was called in Game 6. Rudy went out there before him and gave him a look back of like, coming, dude. Just that attitude is not good. And you see it too. You see it, like, for example, in this OKC Spurs game that I was watching before we hopped on this podcast. I mean, the Spurs did exactly to the Thunder as they did to us in the first couple minutes. But you know what the Thunder did? They stayed connected. And that's what happened when you have a team that has toxicity about them in the locker room. They can't stay connected when the going gets tough. And that's the inherent problem with Julius Randle. It's so well documented going back to his Kentucky days. And Dane Moore has been all over it that no teams are really interested in him over the past year and a half. That's going to be a problem. The market for Julius Randle, you're pretty much you're praying, like hands and knees praying that you can get a neutral asset. So what I'd say, you're probably shopping for another depressed asset that has some severe injury issues or comes with some baggage themselves. And you're like, for example, you're probably hoping a desperate team like the Suns, who has a questionable player like a Jalen Green making some money, could swap. Not that like Jalen Green would come here, but like that's probably the type of deal and situation you're looking for. A team that's desperate enough, trying to keep their star in Devin Booker and saying, you know what, we're going to give it a go. That's best case scenario, by the way. Ultimately, you might have to attach pick 28, and you might have to attach more to get out Julius Randle. So hopefully it's the latter.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, people are going to listen to this, and their first thing they're going to say is, "Well, why the hell did we trade Karl Anthony Towns?" That's just what everybody's saying right now. Why would you trade Cat? If Cat was here, we would have won. If Cat was here, this would have happened.
Yeah.
But if you look at Cat's contract, it would not fit the landscape of what we can do as a team. That's just facts. You can say all you want. Well, Karl Anthony Towns should be here. He can't. There's with how our roster is set up, there is just no way we would have nobody coming off the bench. Like that's just kind of the whole thing. But I just, with Julius Randle, what it comes down to is effort. And we've talked about this. We've been kind of I don't know, not treading on water, but like just I don't know what's the saying goes, like you're walking around glass, however you're tiptoeing around glass, however you want to say it, right? That's how I have been throughout the season about Julius Randle, and at this point, I don't care because Julius Randle, like I said, you are a phenomenal player, you're a professional basketball player, but man, you got to change that attitude. Otherwise, no one wants you to play on their team, and that is what happened to this Timberwolves team. Matt, I don't know if you have anything to say about it.
I do, yeah. Kind of
Mhm.
going back to the Karl Anthony Towns point.
Mhm.
You guys see the numbers right here. In the 2028-2029 season, Ant's going to be making 55.6 million. We'll call it $55.7 million. Karl Anthony Towns, I believe off the top of my head, is going to be making right there with Ant, if not more than Anthony Edwards. So let me ask you, viewers, is Karl Anthony Towns worth more money than Anthony Edwards? If you are not a Karl Anthony Towns super fan and you are not thinking with your ass, the correct answer is absolutely not. And with that being said, like Karl and Julius they're both flawed players, but the common denominator with them is their emotions get the best of them in different ways. And so I think, in a sense, if we kept Cat and we didn't make the Dante trade, we didn't make the Julius trade. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Rob plays better. There's so many different avenues that we could take this, but I still think that the Wolves are ending up in the exact same scenario. We're just looking at Cat's moodiness a little bit different than we are Julius's, just because Cat's been here for so long. Cat's a fan favorite. Julius Randle kind of just had baggage coming to the Wolves, period. Obviously playing in the big market in New York. New York fans are freaking nuts, as is. But with that being said, I think the Wolves find themselves in a similar scenario regardless.
So last year, the Timberwolves total annual revenue was 320 million. If they keep Cat, their payroll itself was above 200 million, and that's before luxury tax payments, which the luxury tax payments would have been around 100 million. So the team payroll, not the front office, not the entire organization payroll, the team payroll would have been $300 million. The team would have been operating at $100+ million loss, if not 150, $200 million loss. That is not realistic or sustainable. It is a fantasy land. That is, and you could point to the Golden State Warriors. Yep. Well, the Golden State Warriors annual revenue last year, 850 million. They can afford it. We can't. It's not realistic. I get we have billionaire owners, but it's also a business. You cannot expect a $200 million cash injection because no freaking billionaire can sustain that long term. Not even the billionaires can sustain that.
Yeah.
So it's a fantasy land. Furthermore, we'd be in the second apron. So I mentioned the 3/5 rule. So not only would we be starting to lose picks in the future, like 2033 would not be tradable right now. It would be a frozen pick, just like 2032. But we also wouldn't be able to aggregate contracts. So what if that team doesn't match the Western Conference Finals or whatnot? Maybe we disappoint this year because we can't afford depth, because we also can't sign anything more than a veteran's minimum. Now it's time to blow the team up and pivot. Well, you can't aggregate contracts. You can't take back more than you receive. So now you're hamstrung in the packages you can even accept for Towns. And it's just a nightmare.
Right.
So that's why they traded Towns. When you hear flexibility and roll your eyes, that's why. Because one, it was an unsustainable financial thing. Sure, you can do it for a year or two. And that's cool that we have owners that are willing to cash inject hundreds of millions of dollars for a year or two. That by the way is unbelievably cool. Expecting them to do the 200 million thing, that's a fantasy land. But furthermore, like, to get out of it, you're in such a penalty hole with all these restrictions in the second apron that you're going to end up with a stripped roster just because of your hamstrung offers you have to get. So for multiple reasons on both cap and CBA penalties, you had to get off Towns. You had to get off Towns. It just had to happen.
Yeah, it's sad, right? Everyone loved Cat for who he was as a person off the basketball court. he was loyal to the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's just who he was. Even though, like Matt said, he had his flaws, right? It's just what it was. And now that we're moving forward with, in the future here, seeing how things are going with our roster and the cap space and whatnot, it was the right move. But let's just one last question here for you guys. We'll make it quick. All right. How far away is Minnesota from, any sort of moves here on making it to the NBA finals? Like, what are your like final thoughts as to seeing what we can do here to make a bigger run?
Oh, that is a very, very, very good question. I think that to start this out, before we even get into the Wolves, I think that before any of these big moves are going to happen, like Tim noted with Kawhi Leonard, there's talks about Kevin Durant getting moved again. Who knows what other stars and what's going on behind the scenes? LeBron James is an unrestricted free agent this year.
Yep.
There are plenty of big names on the table, but the grand prize of it all is Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I do not foresee any world of any big trades happening until Giannis is officially off the table. So, I mean, let's be realistic here. Yes, Giannis is a dream. It would be awesome to see him play next to Ant, entering into Ant's prime. I think that is modern day Shaq and Kobe. It has it written all over it.
Yep.
But let's be realistic. We just made the Julius Randle point about how he is a depreciating asset. He's 31 years old. His best basketball has probably already been played. If you're the Bucks, you are looking to maximize whatever you can get for Giannis. I think that there is a real shot that the Bucks may just net the most first-round picks ever in a trade whenever they decide to move off Giannis because of the caliber of player he is, the type of money he commands, the type of attention he commands, that I think it's going to have to be a 3, maybe a 4-team trade. And with that being said, that's going to be whatever third, fourth teams. Picks are going to be included in that. And if you're the Wolves, your centerpiece can't be an aging Julius Randle, an aging Rudy Gobert. Like, it's just not realistic. And I think for Wolves fans, you just have to face the music that it's probably not going to be Giannis. I'm not saying it can't be because, like
Right.
Tim said, we got owners that are willing to spend money, that are willing to take chances. And, I'm just kind of looking at that from a realistic standpoint. But sorry for my rant there real quick. I think that the Wolves aren't too far off. We saw the emergence of Terrence Shannon Jr. I think that there's a world where Julian Phillips could be an 8th guy coming off a bench, a 9th guy that gives you a little give and go here. You know what I'm saying? But I think that ultimately the Wolves are just a second option away from possibly being able to contend with the OKCs, with the San Antonio Spurs. But we have to be realistic on this side too. We are there is a shot that in these next 10 to 15 years, or in the future, these next 10 to 15 years in the future, that people are going to look at the 2020 Minnesota Timberwolves as the same way we look at the 2014 to 2018 Houston Rockets. You're a great team. You have the star player. You have the assets around him. You just ran into dynasties, and the Spurs are going to be a dynasty. We already know what the Oklahoma City Thunder are doing with Shea going back to back. So those are all things that need to be accounted for. But again, like I said earlier, I think that the Wolves are probably a real second option, like a Kawhi Leonard. I wouldn't want to see it like a Kevin Durant, just another scoring option that is a plus offensive player that can take the pressure off Ant away from being a title contender. And my last point to that is this Dante DiVincenzo injury adds a whole nother layer to this. I think that the original plan for Tim Conley when you made the Cat trade was these next 2 years were going to be a bridge year in a sense. And then you're going to go out. Dante has a super tradable contract, one of the most friendly in the NBA. And especially with how well Dante was playing before he ended up rupturing his Achilles, who knows what you could have netted for Dante. Dante's one of those guys that he's like an Energizer bunny, He's a plug and play. You can stick him in the corner. He can do a little bit of everything. And Dante DiVincenzo is a plus asset for 29 NBA teams. So there's just a lot of things that had to go right that went wrong for the Wolves. So I'm going to have to go out and say that I think that we're still a year away. I think that it's going to have to be the 27 to 28 season that we are going to see Minnesota take the real first shot at a title run and go into the preseason as title favorites.
I'm kind of with you. I actually don't think they're that far away as it feels today.
Yeah.
I think I don't think I like a lot of their roster. I think they have championship caliber rotation players, and they go deep. If they just had one more option to take the pressure off Matt, as Matt was saying, I think a lot of things go differently. Especially when you have a superhuman and Victor Wembanyama, who's like 20 feet tall. You need to be able to move him around on the floor. And if the only person they have to key on is Ant, that just there's not, what can you do? I mean, even OKC is struggling with it because they don't really like right now. I haven't checked the score since halftime, but Jalen Williams is, maybe not the second option that they need to overcome a Spurs, which is crazy to think about. That's the Thunder.
Yep.
I mean, it's game one, so probably an overreaction, but you just need a second person to take that pressure off. And if they can get the right one, I think the Timberwolves operated below the sum of their parts. And I think if you get the right third option that can maybe get the ball moving, and that means you're getting the ball to Nas and Jaden in more of a rhythm and a better place to attack. You also unlock Ant, the off-ball shooter, which I think Ant is the best off-ball shooter in the world, and the Timberwolves cannot even get to that. They can't because he's relied to be the point guard.
Yep.
So it's just, I don't think it's as far away as it feels. Now, can you get the guy? I mean, I think Kyrie Irving, if he's close to 100% of what he was, could be that guy. But I mean, is Dallas really going to get rid of him? So honestly, I could see the Timberwolves maybe taking an intentional step back. Maybe they find a way to get off Julius and see what they have, and they stated their core as Ant, Jaden, Nas, and Yon Berenger. So maybe they see what they have. Maybe they can pick up a couple assets in a Rudy trade for the future. That's all speculation, but if they can't maybe get that one guy in a Kyrie or Kawhi or Giannis, it wouldn't surprise me to see them kind of take a future type move and maybe take an intentional step back. Maybe you're getting a couple guys that could be lightning in a bottle, but really you're just kind of playing some asset management so you can take another run at this thing when Ant is 26, 27, 28.
Yeah. No, and honestly, I mean, just one quick thing and then we'll finish it up here. But like, if you look at the series against the Spurs, like everyone wants to point back at the injuries that happened, but we have the roster even without Dante and Anthony Edwards with both bum knees. Like, we had the roster to compete in that series. It went 6 games. It didn't feel like it, but it went 6 games. And if the locker room was a little bit different, if it wasn't so the key word right now is moodiness. Like, if it wasn't like that, I think this series is a lot different. Like, this series could have went 7 games and it would have been a competitive series, which it did not feel like. We had our 2 wins. Outside of those, the L's were just terrible in my mind. So I agree with you guys. I think there's going to be that bridge year here. I think next year they'll take a little bit of a step back. Maybe they'll still stay in that 6th seed, maybe the 7th seed type of area. And then 27, 28 is, game on. But we appreciate everyone listening to us today at the Daily Wolves Courtside. You can find us Instagram, Twitter /X, TikTok, YouTube, anywhere. And just take a listen to us on the podcast. We'll be throwing some more out here, in the future, and we'll talk some more Wolves off season. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.